I think just the qualities that are essential for somebody in a leadership role. I think it's important to grow into a particular role with the right characteristics and the right qualities. And I think she's exemplified that in everything she's done.
After years of silence, a former royal maid is pulling back the curtain on Prince William, and what she reveals will shock you. According to the Maid, Prince William wasn't always the charming and polished figure we see in public. She claims that behind closed doors, William had a fiery temper, often clashing with staff over small mistakes. She recalled moments when even senior aides were left shaken after heated confrontations, describing him as quick to anger, especially when things didn't go exactly how he wanted. The Maid also spoke about how the pressures of royal life weighed heavily on him. From a young age, William struggled with the immense expectations placed on his shoulders, not just from the public, but from within the royal family itself. She mentioned that while he often smiled for cameras, behind the scenes he was battling a lot of frustration and stress, sometimes taking it out on those around him. She shared that William's upbringing, marked by his parents' turbulent marriage and Princess Diana's tragic death, deeply affected his behavior. As she said, there were days he would isolate himself, avoiding conversations and withdrawing completely, while other days he would lash out unexpectedly, revealing just how much emotional pressure he carried. The Maid also touched on the difference between William and Harry at home. While Harry was often seen as the rebellious one in public, behind palace walls he was more easygoing with staff. William, on the other hand, was far more intense and demanding, sometimes making the work environment tense and unpredictable.
My mother would have known that she had been deceived. She was failed not just by a rogue reporter, but by leaders at the BBC who looked the other way rather than asking the tough questions.
Inside the world of royalty, there are people whose lives are almost invisible to the public. The staff who work tirelessly behind the scenes to keep up the polished image of the monarchy. One of those people was Saudi Rice, a woman whose career in royal service was nothing short of impressive. Before stepping into Prince William and Kate's household, Saudi had already built a reputation that most could only dream of. She had served Queen Elizabeth II with loyalty and precision, a role that demands absolute discretion and perfection. She also spent time working for the Norwegian royal family, where she earned even more respect for her professionalism and dedication. With such impeccable credentials, it's no surprise she was handpicked for a new role in one of the most high-profile households of the British royal family. In 2015, Saudi joined the team supporting Prince William and Kate Middleton, taking up her position at Anmere Hall, the couple's private retreat in Norfolk. Tucked away in the countryside, Anmere Hall promised a peaceful escape from the intense public eye. For Saudi, the position wasn't just a job, it was an honor. She started her new role with pride and a real sense of purpose, committed to serving the Duke and Duchess with the same high standards she had maintained throughout her career. But behind the initial excitement, Saudi had no idea of the personal costs that would come with the role. She stepped into a world where expectations were sky high and personal sacrifices weren't just common, they were required. At first, the extra work seemed manageable. A few more hours here and there didn't feel like a big deal. After all, working for royalty isn't a 9-to-5 job. Saudi took it in stride, often staying late to handle last-minute requests, special events, or unexpected changes in schedule. She wanted to prove herself, and missing a few personal appointments felt like a small price to pay. But the demands didn't stop at Anmere Hall. Before long, Saudi found herself being pulled into duties at Kensington Palace as well, adding more hours and even more pressure. The line between her professional and personal life started to blur. She was constantly on call, often having to rearrange her own plans at a moment's notice to meet the family's needs.
It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse.
As time went on, the sacrifices piled up. Birthdays with family were missed, plans with friends were canceled over and over again. Gradually, friendships began to fade away, not because she wanted them to, but because her schedule left no room for anything outside of work. The job that once filled her with pride slowly started consuming her entire life. Despite the growing pressure, Saudi continued to press on, holding herself to the same impossible standards she had always lived by. But there were signs that the reality behind the royal image wasn't as perfect as it seemed. The tight smiles, the heavy silences, and the constant feeling of walking on eggshells painted a very different picture behind closed doors. What was supposed to be a dream opportunity had turned into a life of endless duty, where her own needs, her own life, became secondary to the demands of royal service. But what began as a dream job quickly turned into something far more suffocating, and Saudi's journey into royal service wasn't the fairy tale she expected. Still, Saudi pressed on until the demands became impossible to ignore, and the glittering facade of royal life started to crumble behind closed doors.
We've all grown up, differently to our other generations, and I very much feel if I can do it myself, I want to do it myself. And there are times when you can't do it yourself, and the system takes over, or it's appropriate to do things differently. But I think driving your son and your wife away from hospital when they just had a born was really important to me, and I don't like fuss, so it's much easier to do it yourself.
As the months stretched on, the demands on Saudi Rice didn't just wear down her schedule, they started wearing down her spirit. So working for the future King of England came with a weight that no one on the outside could truly understand. Every moment had to be perfect. Every task had to be completed without question. Every personal need had to be put aside. The emotional toll was quiet but steady. There were no loud confrontations or dramatic scenes. It was the slow grind of putting everyone else first while her own life became smaller and smaller. Even when everything looked perfect on the outside, Saudi often felt like she was disappearing. In royal service, personal identity often isn't just put on hold, it's erased. The expectation isn't to bring your own personality to the job. It's to blend into the background, to serve without leaving a mark. The physical toll was just as real. Long hours, constant readiness, and the pressure of always being on meant there was little time for real rest. Even when she wasn't actively working, the looming possibility of being needed kept her from ever truly relaxing. And when workdays regularly stretched into nights, her body started to feel it. Fatigue became normal. Stress became constant. Inside Prince William's household, there was politeness. No one shouted or treated her with open disrespect. But that didn't mean the environment was easy. The expectations were relentless. Precision wasn't optional. Excellence wasn't applauded, it was assumed. The bar was set impossibly high, and meeting it wasn't praised, it was simply what was expected. Falling short even slightly wasn't an option. Saudi was never directly mistreated, but the culture made it clear. Her needs were secondary. Her opinions were irrelevant. Her personal struggles had no place. She was there to serve. Over time, the weight of these silent expectations became unbearable. The dream she once had of working for royalty faded into the reality of a life where she hardly recognized herself anymore. And it wasn't just about the workload, it was about losing herself completely. And behind the Golden Gate, Saudi realized something had to give. By the time Saudi made her decision, it wasn't emotional or impulsive. It was a calm, measured choice. The kind that comes after months of carrying a burden too heavy to ignore. After 2 exhausting years in the royal household, she handed in her resignation. Prince George and Princess Charlotte, who had grown used to seeing Saudi in their daily lives, were said to be genuinely upset when she left. She wasn't just another staff member to them, she was part of the environment they knew and trusted. Insiders close to the household hinted quietly that the palace would come to regret losing her. Saudi had brought a level of loyalty and dedication that isn't easy to replace. In a world where few stay long and turnover is common, her presence has been a rare constant. Her departure might have gone unannounced to the public, but inside the palace walls, it left a void, one that no title or salary could easily fill.
These failings, identified by investigative journalists, not only let my mother down and my family down, they let the public down too.
In Saudi Rice's world, every detail mattered, and not in a casual way. No fingerprints could be left on polished surfaces, no linens could have a single wrinkle, no mistakes were tolerated, even the smallest ones. The level of precision expected inside royal households wasn't just high, it was absolute. But the physical work was only part of it. The emotional demands were even heavier. Every smile had to be genuine, even when exhausted. Every reaction had to be measured, even when frustrated. Emotional restraint wasn't just encouraged, it was required. 24 hours a day. Saudi wasn't allowed to have a bad day or show that anything was wrong. In royal service, emotions stayed hidden no matter what. Loyalty was prized above all else, and loyalty didn't just mean doing your job well, it meant sacrificing your own well-being without question. The culture demanded that you show up perfect every day without letting the outside world see the cracks forming underneath. The expectation was clear, the royal image had to stay flawless no matter what it cost the people behind it. Through Saadi's experience, we glimpse the hidden truth. Royalty may shine in public, but behind the scenes, the price of perfection is staggering. Saadi's account doesn't paint Prince William as cruel, far from it. By many accounts, he was polite, respectful, and professional. But the system he represents, the centuries-old traditions of royal service, demands more from workers than anyone realized. It wasn't about individual cruelty, it was about the culture itself. A culture that believes absolute devotion, complete sacrifice, and invisible labor are simply part of the deal. The rules were unspoken but clear. To serve the future king, you had to erase yourself. You had to give everything, expecting nothing in return. Prince William's public image is one of calm, kindness, and modern leadership, but Saadi's experience shows that keeping that image intact relies on a deeply old-world structure, one that demands silent, total service from those around him. His household wasn't cruel, but it reflected an ancient expectation that royal life must appear effortless, even if others are breaking behind the scenes to maintain that illusion. And while William's image remains untarnished in public, Saadi's story forces us to ask, at what hidden cost has that image been maintained? Her story isn't about scandal or revenge, it's about truth and the invisible lives that keep the crown shining. And now, thanks to her, the world finally knows. If you found today's video eye-opening, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell because more untold royal secrets are coming soon.